Now we've learned about container and presentational components, we're actually going to move our passengers into what we call a smart or a container component. So for this, what we're going to do is go into our passenger dashboard folder. So what I'll do for this is actually expand it so we can see what's going on. Now inside of here, I'm going to create a folder called containers. Inside this folder, we are going to have our container components. So the first container component we're going to create a folder for because it might have multiple files inside, and this is going to be called passenger dashboard. Now inside of here, we'll create the component file. So we'll do passenger-dashboard.component.ts. So now we have our passenger dashboard component. So essentially what we're going to do is move all of this logic into a custom dashboard component. So this is going to act as our smart component. And then in the next videos, what we'll actually do is break it down into smaller components so you can actually understand component architecture much further. So what we're actually going to do here is import the component from Angular/core, and we'll do @component, and inside of here, we're going to create a selector. Now the selector is going to be passenger-dashboard. Now what we'll do is also set up the style URLs. So we'll point this to passenger and then dashboard.component.scss. Now at this point the component will actually error if we save this because the file doesn't exist. So what we'll do is create the file momentarily, but what we'll do is set this up real quick with a div inside. So the next file is going to be passenger and then dashboard.component.scss. So this is actually creating the styles for our dashboard component. So now this is created, we can actually close this for now. So hopefully you should have a folder structure that has passenger dashboard. So we can close this and you can see everything is inside of here. We have our module at the bottom, which essentially exports our passenger module. We then include it in our app module so we can use it in our application. So the next thing that we'll do is create this class. So we'll do export and then class, and we'll call this the passenger dashboard component. So we're actually creating the class for this here. Now the interesting thing is we want to move all of this logic across into our custom component. So what we'll do is simply copy this entire thing down to the UL and we'll just remove it for now. So we'll hit save on that. We'll go back to the passenger dashboard and we can simply just paste this in. Now the formatting is all fine and correct. So this will allow us to essentially use this as a particular component as passenger dashboard. Now to be able to use this component, we need to include it in our dashboard module. So what we need to do now is import the passenger dashboard component. So now we've created our own component, we need to actually import it. So where we get it from containers and then passenger dashboard. You can see that TypeScript is helping out here. What I'll do is just move this slightly so we can see the full path. And again, we can just use this auto completion. So hopefully you should have containers, passenger dashboard, and then passenger dashboard.component. So there's no red underscores, which means that we found our component. So what we can do is now include this component in our module. Now, because our app module is actually importing our dashboard module, you may think that we can just go ahead and actually use this. So what we'll do is we'll close all of these off for now, and we'll jump back to the app component, and we'll do passenger-dashboard. Now this will actually throw an error and we'll explain why momentarily and fix it. So in the browser, you can see in the console, it says passenger dashboard is not a known element. So what does this mean? It means that our module is not exporting the dashboard component, so we can't actually use it in another module. So let's go back and fix this. So all we need to do, and it's a very easy fix, we just jump into here. All we need to do is export this passenger dashboard component so we can use it in our other modules. So when we go back to the browser, we can actually see airline passengers. However, there is no data associated with it. So the next step, we need to go and fetch the data from our app component and actually put it in this component. We will open our passenger dashboard component. Now we do not have any data in our class, but we do have the data in our app component. So what we're going to do is simply just highlight this entire array. We're going to copy it and we'll delete this. We can leave this component class as completely empty, and you can see that this has become much cleaner. So what we can do in this file, and I'll move this across so we can just see this, is just simply paste it in. So now in our passenger dashboard component, we now have our array of passengers, which our template is expecting to iterate over. So that's why we weren't seeing it in the DOM. However, there's one small error here, which says we cannot find the name passenger. So our type checking is no longer working. So we can save this out. However, what we want to actually do is move these across into their own files. So it can get quite messy at times if you are creating multiple interfaces. So we'll go ahead and copy this, and we'll simply delete these. And you can see that our app component has become much cleaner. There's no interfaces or data or anything floating around in here. So we can actually copy that and close that file. Now, one thing that I like to do, if you go into your dashboard folder, we're going to create a new folder called models. These aren't physical models, these will simply contain interfaces, like we've just created. What we're going to do in here is just create passenger.interface.ts. What we can do is just paste these in. Now, because we need to access them from various places, we are going to export them. So we're going to export both of our interfaces just in case we need to reference them elsewhere, which in this case, we need to access it in the passengers array. So once this is actually saved out, what we can do is close this file. We can scroll up to the top, and when we want to type check against specific models, we can import the passenger. So we actually can import the interface itself from, and we actually have to go back a few directories here. So we go /models/passenger.interface. So here it's now found our passenger interface and it's now matching with our array. So this allows us to break up our interfaces and act as a particular model so we can type check against various files without exporting them and including random files. So this is a nice way of doing things. And when we introduce something like a service, which will then provide us some data, we can also import this passenger module and tell the service that we're expecting maybe a single passenger or an array of passengers back from an HTTP response. So when we go back to the browser, you can see that everything is rendering correctly. We have 0, we have children, we have checked in dates, and everything has been copied across. Now the interesting thing, if we inspect element, you can see here that we're actually using our custom component. So passenger dashboard is working 100% correctly. Now at this point, our styles have actually disappeared. So how do we fix this? Styles in Angular do not work the same as including something like this in a global style sheet. So if you want to include global styles, we have this app.css available where you can create some overrides. So this is a file that I've created for this course specifically, just to add some basic defaults. So what we want to do is jump across to the app component where we actually created this status. So we'll actually copy this and we can delete it. At the same time, we could just delete this as well. And what we'll do is jump into the passenger Sass file, we'll paste it in and save this out. When we go back to the browser, we should see everything working correctly. And there we have our encapsulated styles. Now I've used the word encapsulated because styles are actually encapsulated to a component. And we'll demonstrate this by opening up the DevTools. So the interesting thing here is you can see Angular has added this particular class ng and then content, and this is a random hash here. So each time we refresh the page, we'll actually get a different class name. Now Angular is doing this to make the styles unique to the component. Now this is something called view encapsulation, which we'll touch on in the Angular Pro course. But essentially, the Angular compiler is rewriting the styles, so you can see here that we have this square brackets, and it's actually matching the attribute here. So it's not affecting any other components that we want to use inside our application, and all the styles are actually scoped to the particular components. So what we could do in fact is create status inside of app, and it wouldn't affect the dashboard component because all the styles are unique to the component themselves. So in this video, what we have done is created our first container component. We've called it passenger dashboard. If we had several container components, we might want to create multiple folders, which is why I've created a folder. And we've also created a passenger interface, which we can then check against in our multiple files. And we've also exported our own dashboard component from our custom module. We've exported our module, and we've gone into app module. We've imported our dashboard module, and we've simply imported it into our root module. So hopefully you've understood the flow of this. We've created our own custom container, and if I just hide this, you can see that everything that we've just done lives inside passenger dashboard. So this is essentially what a feature module will be, and we'll keep building out this feature module in these next few videos to give you a better understanding of the bigger picture.